Greg Gutfeld cracked a joke on live TV. Just another night, just another punchline. But this time, his target was AOC. And what he didn't expect was how fast it would blow up. Within minutes, she fired back in a way no one saw coming. What started as a late-night roast spiraled into a national showdown, with millions watching as satire collided with fury. By the end of the week, one voice walked away louder, while the other was left reeling. Before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss this moment. Tonight, Greg began with a tone that was light but cutting. We're talking about the congresswoman who tweets faster than she legislates. Yes, our favorite revolutionary barista turned political superstar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The audience chuckled. Gutfeld's panel of guests, half amused, half trying not to burst out laughing, waited for the next jab, and it came fast. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, he continued, but every time AOC speaks, I get flashbacks to that one college roommate who read half of Marx's Communist Manifesto and thought she'd unlock the secrets of the universe. The laughter erupted, but this wasn't just Gutfeld being funny. There was something sharper in his delivery tonight. He was building towards something. She tells us billionaires are the problem, he said, raising an eyebrow, while sipping a $12 green smoothie, live streaming from a $1,000 phone in a $3,000 designer outfit. You've got to respect the commitment to irony. The panel roared. One guest added, "She's the Che Guevara of Whole Foods." Greg smirked. Exactly. She's the Joan of Arc of avocado toast. But he wasn't done. Not by a long shot. He reached under the desk and pulled out a stack of printed tweets. Now, let's play a little game I like to call moral grandstanding or real policy. He held up one from AOC's timeline. The climate crisis is an existential threat to humanity, and we need the Green New Deal now. He paused. Sounds serious. Sounds urgent. Now, let's ask the obvious. What's in the Green New Deal? The screen behind him lit up with a list. Universal income. Zero emission everything. Overhaul of every building in America. Ban air travel. Gutfeld blinked at the camera. And that's just the opening act, he deadpanned. We're one amendment away from free unicorn rides. The panel erupted again, but this time it wasn't just laughter. There was a rhythm to it, a beat. Gutfeld was setting the tone and everyone could feel it. She's not offering solutions, he continued. She's selling a brand. She's not debating policy. She's uploading content. If you disagree, you're a villain. If you question the plan, you hate progress. It's not politics. It's influencer cosplay with a congressional badge. Now the room was locked in. Greg turned serious, even if only for a second. And the most dangerous part? She genuinely thinks she's right. Not just politically, but morally. That's not public service. That's a crusade. The screen flashed to a clip of AOC in a fiery speech, calling her critics climate deniers and agents of injustice. The room watched in silence. Gutfeld raised a finger. There. That right there. That's not how you lead. That's how you sell t-shirts. The silence broke into another round of laughter, but behind it was a buzz. People weren't just entertained, they were engaged. Then came the final line of the night. She's not here to fix the system, she's here to broadcast it. A beat. A pause, and then came the reaction. Because across the country, in real time, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was watching. And she was not laughing, not even close. Less than an hour after Gutfeld's segment aired, Twitter lit up like a Christmas tree on steroids. At 9:47 p.m., Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez hit send. Imagine being a grown man who has to punch down at young women for ratings. Couldn't be me. Sad. No tag, no direct mention, but everyone knew exactly who she was talking about. The replies came pouring in. Her supporters cheered. Gutfeld's fans pushed back. Hashtags exploded. Gutfeld versus AOC trended within minutes. But AOC wasn't done. 10 minutes later came another post. Mock all you want, but some of us are trying to do something. Others just talk. That one landed harder. It carried weight. It felt personal. On the next night's show, Gutfeld wasted no time. "Oh, I must have struck a nerve," he said, pretending to look surprised. "Apparently, I'm now a sad grown man, and which is still better than a delusional influencer who thinks she's running a revolution from an iPhone." The audience roared. He held up her tweet and squinted at the screen. "Young women. Is that what we're calling 34-year-old congresswomen now? What's next? Brave girl boss energy." Another laugh, another jab. The gloves were officially off, but this time, AOC didn't wait. The very next day, she requested a spot on MSNBC's The Beat with Ari Melber. She came in hot. "I'm tired of these late-night clowns trying to turn policy into a punchline," she said, sitting straight-backed with her arms folded. "They can joke, they can laugh, but people are hurting. They're scared about climate, about jobs, about justice, and instead of solutions, we get comedy routines." Melber nodded, but she wasn't done. "And by the way," she added, "if Greg Gutfeld wants to debate ideas, let's do it anytime, anywhere, but I doubt he'll show up without a laugh track to back him up." It was bold, director, on camera. That clip went viral within the hour. Back at Fox, the reaction was swift. Gutfeld leaned forward at the desk. "Anytime, anywhere. Is this a rap battle or a policy summit? I'm in." He paused. "But I should warn her, there won't be a script and no retakes." And just like that, the stakes shifted. This wasn't just a segment anymore. It was a showdown. The media went into a frenzy. CNN called it a bizarre cross between a roast and a debate. The New York Post splashed, "Gutfeld versus AOC. Gloves off." Memes flooded Instagram and TikTok. Late-night TV hosts started taking sides. Trevor Noah joked, "I'd pay to watch that debate, but only if there's popcorn." AOC followed up with another tweet. "Glad to see Greg's paying attention. Let's see if he brings substance or just sarcasm." The line was set. The hook was in. The public wanted blood, or at least fireworks. Behind the scenes, producers scrambled. Could this happen? Would it be a live debate? A joint segment? A panel? Nobody knew yet. But one thing was clear. Neither of them was backing down. Not now. And what started as a few throwaway jokes on a comedy show was spiraling into one of the most unexpected confrontations of the year. What no one realized yet, not even AOC or Gutfeld, was how far it was about to go. Because the next move wouldn't be made on TV, it would land in a place neither of them could control. Saturday morning, Union Square, New York City. AOC was scheduled to speak at a climate justice rally, something she did often, usually drawing a loyal crowd of supporters and activists. But this time, the air was different. There was tension, buzzing, curious tension. Gutfeld's words were still hanging in the air, and her response was still ricocheting across the internet. Dozens of cameras lined the edge of the crowd. Journalists weren't there just to cover climate. They were waiting for a punch, and AOC gave it. Climbing onto the stage with a determined stride, she looked out at the audience. Microphone in hand, she didn't start with the usual talking points. Instead, she went straight for the fire. "You know," she said, "I've been told lately that I should smile more, be less angry, make fewer dramatic speeches, be a good little congresswoman and sit quietly." Boos rose from the crowd. She continued, "And most of that criticism comes from men who've never written a bill, never sat through a budget hearing, and never once worried about the rent being due." The audience erupted in applause. She was in her element. "Comedy is great," she said. "But when jokes become the only way some people deal with real issues, when they mock solutions instead of offering alternatives, that's not funny. That's cowardice." The crowd roared. Social media lit up in real time. Clips from the rally flooded Twitter and Instagram. Headlines rolled across news tickers. "AOC fires back again, this time in the streets." One influencer captioned the speech, "She's not backing down, and neither should we." Meanwhile, over at Fox headquarters, Gutfeld was watching, and he couldn't help but laugh. "She just proved my point again," he told his staff, scribbling down notes. There would be another segment, and this one would go harder. But even as the TV war ramped up, something unexpected was happening. People started taking sides, not in the usual partisan way, but in a visceral, cultural way. TikTok creators began parodying both AOC's impassioned speech style and Gutfeld's sarcastic monologues. YouTubers made mashups of their clashes. Twitter threads dissected every sentence. What had started as a snarky monologue was now something else entirely. It was political theater, but with real stakes. At a diner in Manhattan, a waitress named Carla told a customer, "I used to think that Greg Guy was funny. Now I'm not sure if he's just mean." On a college campus in Arizona, a political science professor played both clips for his students and asked, "Is this leadership or performance?" And in a Brooklyn coffee shop, a barista handed over a latte with AOC's face stenciled in the foam. The line between news and entertainment had blurred, and neither Gutfeld nor AOC had full control anymore. Back in the studio, Greg prepared for the next night's show. His team loaded new clips, framed tweets, wrote punchlines. This time, he said, we're not just going after her ideas, we're going after the whole circus. The way he said it made one thing clear. He wasn't aiming for laughs anymore. He wanted a takedown. But what he didn't know was that someone else was about to enter the fight and change everything. Monday night, the episode of Gutfeld opened like clockwork. The lights, the laughter, the theme music. But tonight, something was different. Greg sat a little straighter. The grin on his face was sharper. He leaned into the camera like he was holding back a secret. We've got a special guest tonight, he said. A voice of reason. Someone who's seen this kind of political performance before. Only she calls it out faster than I ever could. The audience waited. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Tulsi Gabbard. The crowd erupted. She walked on set in a sharp blazer and a calm smile. The kind of smile that said, I'm not here to yell, I'm here to dismantle you. She took her seat next to Greg and nodded to the panel. Greg turned to her. So, Tulsi, you've seen the clips, you've read the tweets. What's your take on Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez's crusade? Tulsi didn't flinch. She's passionate, she said evenly, but passion without discipline, it's just noise. The studio went silent for a beat, then burst into applause. Greg laughed. That might be the nicest takedown I've ever heard. Tulsi continued. I've served in Congress, I've been in the meetings, I've seen the real work. It's not glamorous, it's not viral, it's quiet, it's detailed, it's thankless. But that's what leadership is. AOC, she's chasing the algorithm. Oof, that line hit. Social media lit up again. Tulsi vs AOC began trending alongside the usual tags. Tulsi's calm dissection carried more weight than 100 jokes. Back on set, Greg leaned in. So you're saying it's all branding? Look, Tulsi said, if the solution to every problem is a viral tweet, then Congress becomes a content studio, and we've already got enough of those in Hollywood. Another laugh, another headline, another round of clips chopped up for YouTube shorts. Across town, AOC's team saw it all. The rally, the tweets, those were expected, but Tulsi, that was unexpected. That was personal. They debated responding. One aide said, ignore it. Another pushed for a tweet, but AOC made the call. We're not going low, she said. Let them punch down. The truth, she was rattled because Tulsi wasn't just another Fox pundit. She was a former Democrat, a former ally, and now she was sitting next to Gutfeld, casually picking apart AOC's playbook on national television. The next morning, Greg's segment went viral. Clips of Tulsi saying chasing the algorithm were stitched into TikToks. Podcasters replayed the entire exchange. Conservative outlets hailed it as a masterclass in political restraint. Even some liberal commentators quietly admitted Tulsi had made a point, but the game wasn't over, because just as the Gutfeld camp started to gloat and AOC's side began to retrench, the real twist came from someone completely outside politics. Someone who saw the feud and decided to step into the ring, not with tweets, not with speeches, but with a microphone, a camera, and a platform even bigger than Fox News or Capitol Hill. And the next chapter, it was going viral before it even aired. Wednesday night, The Tonight Show was already trending before it hit the air. The guest list had leaked. No politicians, no pundits. Just one monologue and one burning question. Would Jimmy Fallon talk about it? He did. 3 minutes into his opening jokes, Fallon paused, flipped his note card, and grinned. So, Greg Gutfeld roasted AOC so hard this week, Twitter tried to file a fire hazard complaint. The audience chuckled, and AOC clapped back like she always does. He continued. Then Tulsi Gabbard walked in out of nowhere, like that one friend who shows up to the drama with popcorn and receipts. Laughter swelled. But here's the thing, Fallon added, dropping his tone slightly. Everyone's talking about the jokes, but no one's talking about the truth. The room got quieter. We've got one side saying she's too dramatic, the other saying he's just mocking. But let's be honest, this isn't about Greg or AOC anymore. This is about how we argue, how we disagree, and whether we even want solutions, or just sound bites. The camera zoomed in slightly. Fallon leaned in, still smiling but with more weight behind his words. Now we've got politicians doing stand-up and comedians doing commentary. And meanwhile, the problems are still sitting there, untouched. A short silence, then applause. And just like that, The fight took a turn. Fallon didn't pick sides. He widened the lens. Clips of his monologue went viral within the hour, not because they were funny, but because they made people stop, reassess, and ask themselves if the Gutfeld AOC showdown had crossed into spectacle. Meanwhile, on the other side of the country, AOC watched the Fallon clip on her phone. She sat quietly, no tweets, no statement. Her chief of staff asked, "Want to say something?" She shook her head, "Not yet." Across the network divide, Greg Gutfeld watched the same clip from his dressing room. He didn't laugh. He narrowed his eyes. "He's trying to play the neutral card," Greg muttered, "but we all know who his audience is." The next night, Gutfeld struck back on air. "I saw Fallon's monologue," he said. Cute, very PBS special of him, but when people are out here pushing trillion-dollar fantasies disguised as policy, maybe we should joke about it. He paused, letting the audience settle. Because if the only people we're allowed to criticize are the ones we agree with, then congratulations. We've officially canceled thinking. Boom. Another round of applause, but Gutfeld's tone was shifting. Less jokes, more edge. Fallon's commentary had hit a nerve, and just as AOC was gearing up for her next town hall, someone on her team leaned in and whispered, "Trevor Noah just weighed in." She blinked. What did he say? They pulled out a phone and hit play. Trevor Noah's face lit up the screen. "Gutfeld versus AOC, he said on The Daily Show. Feels like Twitter drama. Fox edition. It's political debate turned into TikTok beef. All we need now is Logan Paul to moderate." The audience burst into laughter. Then he added, "But seriously, what do you get when a comedian thinks he's a lawmaker and a lawmaker thinks she's a TikToker? You get exactly what we have now. Confusion and cable news gold." And just like that, the spotlight got hotter. This wasn't just about two voices anymore. Now everyone was watching. And the next move? It would finally happen face to face. The buzz spread everywhere. Newsrooms, podcasts, college campuses, even barbershops. The question wasn't if they would meet, it was when and how. Then came the headline no one expected. AOC and Greg Gutfeld agreed to live interview on national TV. It wasn't a debate. It wasn't a panel. It was a one-on-one sit-down, aired live, no edits, no applause breaks, just two chairs and two microphones, hosted by 60 Minutes' own Norah O'Donnell, who had been quietly working behind the scenes to make it happen. The promo dropped that Friday. This Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, Greg Gutfeld, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, face-to-face. 1 hour, no filters. The internet broke. People picked sides instantly. Comments became war zones. "She's going to wipe the floor with him. He's going to eat her alive." This will be a disaster for both. But no one was planning to change the channel. Backstage, CBS headquarters. Norah O'Donnell reviewed the format with her team. Keep it clean, no interruptions. Let them talk, let them reveal who they really are. Producers were nervous. PR teams had their phones ready. In her dressing room, AOC was calm but focused. Her team briefed her on potential attacks, policy traps, and social media references. She nodded through most of it, then said softly, "Let him talk. I want people to hear who he really is." Across the hall, Gutfeld tightened his tie. His producer handed him a bullet point list of AOC's contradictions, policy flops, and Twitter greatest hits. Greg smirked. "I don't need the notes. I've been preparing for this for 3 years." The countdown began. Cameras rolled. A dramatic intro montage hit the screen. Sound bites, clashing quotes, fast cuts of town halls, and late-night zingers. Then the lights came up. 2 chairs, 1 host. Norah looked straight into the camera. "Tonight we're witnessing something rare. 2 of America's most talked-about political figures sitting down for an honest conversation. Greg Gutfeld, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Thank you both for being here." Greg gave a polite nod, leaning back casually. AOC offered a tight smile. And then it began. Norah opened. "Let's start with what sparked all of this. Greg, your comments. Congresswoman, your responses. Was this political discourse or personal attack?" Greg didn't flinch. When public figures put ideas into the world, especially ones that affect millions of people, they should expect criticism. And yes, sometimes that criticism comes with a little bite. "I'm not here to babysit feelings." AOC nodded slowly. "I agree with accountability," she said, "but there's a difference between criticism and mockery. If your goal is to entertain, that's one thing. But if your goal is to change things, then the jokes should stop where the real pain begins." Norah raised a brow. "You both seem to be arguing from the same idea. idea, just opposite ends of it. Greg smiled. That's because I don't think she's wrong about everything, just about how she sells it. AOC shot back, and I think you're smart enough to know when your joke's punched down, but you keep doing it anyway. Nora's eyes moved between them like a referee waiting for the next punch. Greg, she said evenly, is that your final take on the Congresswoman's approach? Greg leaned forward, voice lower but more deliberate now. My final take? She's a talented politician, charismatic, sharp, but she's more interested in going viral than going to work. And the sad part is, she's good enough to do both. She just doesn't. AOC's lips pressed into a line. She didn't break eye contact. You know what I think is sad, Greg? That you've convinced yourself cynicism is wisdom. That tearing things down makes you a truth teller. You don't build, you don't risk. You just throw stones from the sidelines and hope the cameras catch it. The silence was so thick it felt like the entire country was holding its breath. Nora glanced toward the control room. Still live, still rolling. So, she said, if both of you believe the other is part of the problem, what's the point of this conversation? AOC answered first, without missing a beat. The point is to show people what happens when we stop letting narratives hide behind sound bites. If they see the real Greg and the real me, then maybe they can decide who's actually fighting for them. Greg smirked. Or maybe they'll realize both of us are human, flawed, opinionated, stubborn, and that neither side has a monopoly on the truth. Nora looked into the camera, her voice steady. This is what democracy looks like when it's stripped of applause lines and talking points. Two people, no scripts, no safety nets. She paused, letting the weight hang. Now, we have just a few minutes left, so I want each of you to speak directly to the people watching at home. Greg leaned in first. If you're tired of being told what to think, whether it's from me, her, or anyone, then start questioning everything. Laugh when it's funny, call it out when it's not, and never let outrage be your only political identity. AOC followed, her tone measured but firm. If you're tired of being told your problems are jokes, remember this. The people laughing the loudest aren't always laughing with you. Pay attention to who benefits when nothing changes. The camera caught Greg glancing at her just for a beat. Then Nora's voice cut through. Thank you both. This has been unforgettable. The feed cut to black. Outside the studio, phones lit up instantly. Hashtags exploded. AOCV's Gutfeld trended worldwide. Opinion columns were already in draft form before either of them had even taken off their microphones. But inside the building, as they stood and shook hands, there was no applause. Just a quiet, unreadable exchange of glances that said the fight wasn't over. It had only changed arenas. AOC finally broke it. Not with a rebuttal, but with a slow, deliberate nod. It wasn't agreement, it was acknowledgement. Nora straightened in her chair, and that concludes our conversation. But the moment didn't conclude. It hung there, suspended, as both of them sat still, their eyes locked for just half a second longer than politeness required. Then the lights faded and the feed cut to the network logo. Within minutes, the internet detonated. Clips of loud and wrong versus precise and unpopular flooded every platform. Side-by-side edits of the exchange racked up millions of views before the interview even hit replay on the West Coast. Twitter. Threads dissected tone, body language, and facial micro-expressions like they were championship fight replays. Cable news lined up their panels for instant reaction. One network called AOC's line a rallying cry for the unheard. Another called Greg's response the most brutal dismantling of performative politics in years. On TikTok, users lip-synced both speeches. On Instagram, political influencers split into camps, posting black and white stills of each combatant like wartime propaganda. Backstage, neither Greg nor AOC was smiling. AOC's team was buzzing around her, debating whether to ride the viral wave or pivot to policy posts. She told them, wait, let it breathe. Greg's producer slid him a phone showing a live view count. You're trending #1. Greg just said, good, let's see if they're still talking in a week. Because for both of them, this wasn't the end of the fight, only the shift to a new battlefield. And somewhere out there, strategists, late night hosts, and rival pundits were already planning how to use that moment for their own headlines. And with that, the credits of the culture war moment slowly faded, not with a bang, but with reflection. Because in the age of hot takes and viral battles, what Greg Gutfeld and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez accidentally created wasn't just just another media storm. It was a rare pause, a national mirror, a chance for Americans to see what happens when two polarizing forces finally stop posturing and start exposing not just each other, but the system they both navigate. In Queens, an organizer at the community center whispered to a colleague, "She's different now, a little quieter, but more focused." And in a Fox News writer's room, Greg's producer quietly asked, "You think we'll do more of those real interviews?" Greg didn't answer immediately. Then, with a half smile, he said, "Maybe." Political consultants called it the O'Donnell effect, a moment that proved people weren't tired of politics. They were tired of performance. Because in that one unfiltered hour, two firebrands gave the nation what it didn't know it needed. Vulnerability wrapped in debate, ego cracked open by tension and truth. Buried under the mess, but not unreachable. It wasn't unity, it wasn't closure, but it was, finally, conversation. And maybe that's where real change begins.